barreling through scrub oak and manzanita as if they're merely mist sculptures, lugging a 50-pound bag that grows heavier by the moment. Artie notes the trees around him and thinks, if Cassie was around, she could name every one. Indeed, no species of pine, oak, or fir had been unknown to his lady. Her passion for flora had shaped hours of their pillow talk. A family fixation, she'd claimed, passed down for more generations than I could ever count, sweetheart. My little lost girl, he thinks. How is life so unfair, snatching away perfect bliss? Is Cassie even still alive? Do I want her to be? Lizards and rats flee his footfalls. Butterflies flutter in the periphery like fire embers granted sentience. A cricket orchestra sounds, seeking a crescendo that'll go unheard by Artie, as his iPhone's earpods are already filling his head with boppy rock and roll. As befits the modern era, their relationship was effectuated via technology. Intersext, an online dating application for those possessing both male and female genitalia, paired them. The mutual attraction was instant. Artie, whose penis and testes were fully functional, and whose vagina seemed mere ornamentation, gladly assumed the boyfriend role. Cassie, whose ovaries and uterus brimmed with potential, and whose male sex organs were permanently limp and quite minuscule, became his best girl. Their giggles and flirty whispers annoyed singles all over Los Angeles, at dive bars, art exhibitions, and dawdling farmers market outings. Their meals always conformed to Cassie's salt-free diet. Shedding their leather jackets and jeans afterward, they fucked like rabid beasts, howling into the night as time seemed to dilate. Never had Artie felt more contented. We should leave Smog City for a while. Get away from these selfie-spewing wannabe celebs that pass themselves off as our friends and wallow in each other for, I don't know, a week or two, said Cassie one morning. Dressing for another barista shift, foregoing a shower, as they'd slept in far too long, she batted her eyelashes in that coquettish way he could never resist and added, there's this cabin up in NorCal, smack dab in the woods near the Colorado border. It's been in my family since, like, the 1600s or something. We could take time off from work and be the only humans around. What do you say? Artie, who loathed his Universal Studios ticket booth job anyway, pretended to deliberate for about 30 seconds. Cassie hadn't been exaggerating about the cabin's age. A single-bedroom log construction, it included a wood-burning stove, a copper bathtub, and little else. A grime-sheeted bed was its sole modernish touch. What? Artie groaned. No running water or electricity? No fucking toilet? Perfectly serene, Cassie answered. There's a river nearby, unless it dried up, and we've plenty of candles stashed away. We brought supplies with us, so we'll hardly starve. Yeah, what about a bathroom? She tossed him a roll of toilet paper and said, anywhere outside will do nicely. 4 days later, Artie returned from his morning walk with a bouquet of wildflowers. Violets, poppies, and lilies bound with a borrowed scrunchie. Rolling over in bed, grinning beatifically, Cassie snatched them from his grip and pressed them to her face. Daddy brought breakfast, she cooed. Her teeth tore away petals, white, yellow, and pink. Yeah, very funny, girl, said Artie, as she masticated and swallowed them. And what's with this daddy shit? Do you have a stepfather fetish we should explore? Setting the remains of the bouquet down, she turned her eyes to his and said, matter-of-factly, I'm pregnant, Artie. You're going to be a father. He swayed on his feet for a moment as color first drained from and then returned to the world. An intersex pregnancy. Those have got to be pretty rare. What, did you miss a period or something? How do you know? Trust me, I know, she answered with a tone that aborted all further discussion. That night and the next two, carefully keeping their thoughts in the present lest parental responsibilities arrive early, they made love. Chugging water to stay hydrated, they buried themselves in one another as if attempting to merge into a singular creature. Dirty talk, they shrieked until their throats felt half shredded. They nibbled each other's necks to leave slowly fading teeth marks. So exhausted were they afterward that when unconsciousness came, it felt anvil-like. Then came an awakening, minutes prior to midnight. Rolling over in bed, Artie realized that he was alone. Cassie, he said, where are you, baby? There was a bitter taste in his mouth. The bedsheets were slimy, as was his skin. What is this? Mucus? He wondered. Has Cassie caught some kind of cold? Have I? Growing ever more anxious, he crawled out of the covers. They'd left a flashlight on the floor between two softly glowing candles. Not bothering to dress himself, he retrieved it and surged into the night clad in only boxers. The atmosphere was quite muggy. Trees loomed like shadow obelisks. His flashlight's beam slid over them as if their trunks had been greased. Mosquitoes landed on Artie and feasted, ignored. Many times he tripped over shrubs and endured shallow abrasions. "Cassie!" he called. "Oh, baby, where are you?" Charged silence was the only answer. With nearly an hour elapsed, as Artie began to mutter to himself that he must be dreaming, he caught sight of a silhouette slipping through the trees. Turning his flashlight upon it, he saw a well-sculpted figure that could only be Cassie. Naked, unashamed, striding as if she owned the entire woodland, she twitched her head left and right. Oh, how he yearned to see her face revolve toward him, with lips that parted to voice an assurance that everything was all right. But when he again called her name, Artie went ignored. He trailed her for some minutes, never quite closing the distance. When he increased his pace, so did she. When he slowed down exhausted, so too did Cassie dawdle. Artie tensed his muscles to sprint and then relaxed them, yet walking. He didn't want to risk tripping again and losing sight of her entirely. Begging her to stop, to explain herself, to acknowledge him in any way whatsoever, he might as well have been addressing the waning crescent moon. The batteries in his flashlight died. With them went his last shred of optimism. He called Cassie's name one more time and then halted in his tracks. The woods, tough enough to navigate in the daylight, now seemed entirely foreign, an alien planet's terrain. Able to pursue Cassie no longer, did he retain enough of his wits to return to the cabin? Or would he be yet wandering come morning, miles distant? Cassie said that bears live in these parts, he remembered. God, I hope she was joking. After some nervous deliberation, he revolved on his heels and retraced his steps. Fortunately, he'd crushed enough shrubs in his trek to provide him crude trail markers in the darkness. They, and a navigational instinct that Artie had been unaware he possessed, carried him back to a shelter that now echoed his forlornness. Bone-weary, he collapsed back into bed. With his next awakening arrived renewed purpose. Cassie remained absent. That just wouldn't do. Ignoring the pain and itching of his countless scrapes and mosquito bites, as well as his terrible BO and allergy-inflamed eyes and sinuses, Artie struggled into his clothes on his way out the door. With no wind to abate it, the heat had grown blistering. To spite it, he hummed a bubblegum tune. His trail of broken plants was more obvious in the daylight. Far more careful with his steps than he'd been the night previous, Artie made slow, steady progress, and even managed to avoid shoe-crushing a toad whose earth tones were hardly distinguishable from the soil beneath it. Seeking signs of his beloved in every bit of vegetation that he passed, he was shocked to sight what at first seemed an animal carcass, resting in the shadow of a ponderosa pine. Drawing nearer, he thought, "No, it can't possibly be, can it?" Ghastly came confirmation. Cassie's hair, every single lock of it, all clumped together as if somebody scalped her. But there was no flesh attached to that mass of black curls, no blood present either, just more of that snotty substance that had covered the bed. Something mondo bizarro's going on here, he thought. Understatement of the year. But surely, Cassie wasn't wearing a wig all these months. All those times I pulled her hair as I fucked her, I'd have torn it away. Wondering if perhaps he should save her shed curls, he couldn't quite bring himself to touch them. Instead, Artie continued on his trek, seeking further signs of Cassie. It wasn't a long wait. What seemed at a distance to be a pair of fallen tree limbs resolved into human arms, lithe and pale, wearing the black nail polish that Cassie couldn't do without. Again, no blood or obvious points of severance. If not for the fine hairs adorning them and the feel of bones and malleable muscles beneath their skin, they might have been popped whole out of a mannequin's torso. This has got to be some kind of nightmare, Artie thought. Am I in a coma right now? Did we drive off the road on the way to the cabin? Am I in a hospital bed somewhere, never to wake up again? He continued on. Dragging his heels through the underbrush, he was hardly surprised to encounter first one naked leg, then another. The soles of Cassie's feet were filthy. Her toes were unmistakable. Artie had sucked them enough times to conjure their contours in his mouth. As with her shed arms, they'd exited her body without signs of violence. No cauterization marks marred their pale perfection. Stunned, Artie stroked them for a while, until he became aware of his actions and moved on, mortified. Eventually, he reached a site where an oak tree had collapsed against its fellows to form an ersatz cavern. Sheltered beneath a mighty trunk, screened by leaves and branches, and shadowed, his beloved awaited. Artie gasped at the sight of her. Cassie's proportions hadn't changed much, but her physique had greatly shifted. 2 pairs of tentacles now protruded from her head, behind which had sprouted a mantle to contain her relocated genitals and anus. The rest of her body seemed one massive tail, into which, before Artie's very eyes, the remains of her breasts withdrew. She turned to regard him. "They're coming," she hissed through a mouth that was no longer human. "Whoa, what the hell happened to you?" Artie asked, as his heart beat fit to burst. "You're some kind of slug chick, Cassie. Did a falling meteor hit you? Did a mad scientist abduct you? Did cosmic radiation shoot down from the sky and turn you into this?" She'd captured his gaze. Though disgusted and terrified, he couldn't look away. Unnervingly, she chuckled. "No, nothing like that, Artie. More like a family curse. My kind grow up in your world, find love eventually, and then leave our humanness behind to birth others just like us. Always, when our transition time comes, we return to these woods." Translucent spheres began to slide from her. "In just a few weeks, our children will hatch from these eggs. All will be intersex, free to live as boys, girls, or non-binaries." The eggs continued arriving. Artie counted 24. Overwhelmed, feeling as if the sky itself was compressing to smash him to paste, he whispered, "Sorry," then turned and fled. Wasting not a moment to collect his things from the cabin, he hurled himself into his Impala and sped home. Artie showered the dried slime from his flesh and returned to his job. When friends inquired about Cassie, he told them, "We've broken up. No, I don't know how to reach her. She's staying with her family for a while, I think." He guzzled down beers until his sorrows fuzzed over, awakening each morning with a throbbing skull. Most days, he skipped breakfast and lunch, and picked up the same Indian takeout for dinner, which he hardly tasted. Terrible dreams awaited his every slumber, yet his conscious hours were even worse. Then through his haze arrived a paternal instinct. "Our kids are about to hatch. I've got to return to those woods." Artie hesitates before the collapsed tree cavern, takes a deep breath, then investigates. Cassie is gone. Probably crawled off somewhere to die, he thinks. Her eggs, white as pearls, having shed their translucency, remain clumped together in the damp soil. Knowing that the wait won't be long, he sets his burden down and sits. Am I capable of loving the kids that hatch from these things? He wonders, pulling his earpods from his skull so as to wallow in the silence for as long as it lasts. Or will I be pouring my bag out? And is 50 pounds of salt enough to kill all of them?